Yeah, that's right. We have chainsaws in the background talking about baseball. I just drove across the country, got back to the East Coast. They're cutting down trees. Hopefully, they're turning those trees into baseball bats. Let's talk about baseball, guys. I did a really lot of work on this today, and it still needs a lot, but there is some interesting things to talk about. So, what's going on right now is you're looking at a sheet with a bunch of information about baseball, and it will get better throughout the season, but even in this early stage, there's some interesting things to look at now. As I have updated a bunch of player stats and things, and looked at lineups and stuff. Like this is something that's helpful for fantasy that has like a rating of each player in here and where they are in the lineup, and making sure that we have full lineups, but we don't have full lineups because some people didn't play at all last year, which is what's going on in Seattle. 3 of these guys didn't even play at all in 2020. And a couple other people moved around and didn't have any stats from last year. So it's kind of an incomplete roster set, but it's reasonable. And what it does do is it helps, but some of these things that we're going to talk about later in the year as we go through these videos, hopefully daily, is the pick rank and the bet score. They're actually not correct right now because of other distortions that I'll discuss later. So we don't even need to pay attention to those, but there are some things we can pay attention to today. And this is about it right here. So what's going on is there's a projected score of the game. Right here you have Baltimore versus Boston. That game just started, I believe, if it didn't get canceled. Who knows? There will be cancellations all the time. Get ready for it, I'm sure. But it's saying here that Boston wins this game 3-2. It's going to give you some pitching stats here for Nathan Eovaldi and John Means. It's going to color code them where green is good and red is bad comparatively across the entire slate of all games of the day, not just this one game. So John Means is one of the worst pitchers. Him and Yarborough and Yosei Kikuchi. We're going to have fun with baseball names this year, aren't we? Those people are bad pitchers apparently, and then there's other stuff here with ERA and lineup stats for the players that are playing in the game, and ERA, a bullpen ERA, and wins for the team for the season, and runs and all these things. But they're also all related to 2020 right now, and they're not related to this year because none of the players have stats yet. It's the second day, so the most they can have is 1 day worth of stats. We need to wait about 7 to 14 days before we can start doing things for the teams for the season of 2021. So it's a hodgepodge of last year and this year's stats in here. This year's starters. There's really almost no this year's stats because there aren't any this year's stats. So all that being said, this projected score is therefore a little attenuated, or it is. I think the scores are lower, and they're less. There's less runs between the teams than there would be normally once these stats get current for the current season. And then we fill in all these batters because this is all having another problem is the batters aren't fully filled in, and there were trades, and I did a lot of work today to get most of this right for today, but there's going to be a whole more games tomorrow, and it's going to require, like I said, weeks of work before we really can talk about it more intelligently every game. But is there anything on here that's interesting based on what we're seeing? We're saying that, all right, well, Boston's line's reasonable because they're supposed to win. Here, Tampa Bay versus Miami, sorry, I didn't talk about the win algorithm percentage. The win algorithm percentage takes into a bunch of different accounts, or a bunch of different categories here, and as the season grows, it's much more reliable, and it's a comparison between the two teams, and it compares the teams, and the projected score also compares the teams, but they're not totally connected exactly. So you can have conflicts here, like we could look at what these scores actually are by decimal point to get a little bit better idea of what it's thinking. And wow, that's super close. I actually did want to extend that out to 2 decimal points. Unbelievable. So here, like, just barely favoring Miami. Maybe it is tied to the win algorithm. I think I actually did tie it to the win algorithm. So that being said, what do we see in terms of where is this win algorithm percentage disparity great? Meaning, like, here's a 29-10, meaning the Dodgers are supposed to crush Colorado, supposedly, according to last year's stuff. But Sensatella actually is a pretty decent pitcher, so keep that in mind. But their ERA is high, but that's because they play in Colorado. Here's a 28-12 White Sox over the Angels. Here's a 23-14 San Diego supposedly going to beat Arizona. And are any of the lines good? The answer is not really. The lines. Here we have we think San Francisco beats Seattle. However, Seattle's missing a bunch of guys that aren't included in their roster, and so it's distorted. So, all right, I know I just blew through all that really quick, but what this is saying is that of all the games, for example, today, we think that the White Sox put up the most runs of any team that is playing today. And that is because they're going up against Andrew Heaney here, who has a 4.46 ERA, and the Angels' ERA from last season was at a 5, and they used to give up 5 runs a game. And really, this number should be higher. I'll do more, obviously, work on the formulas as we go here. But so, like, White Sox are supposed to put up the most runs. Who's supposed to put up the least runs? Apparently, Colorado. Wow. Against Trevor Bauer. Who got traded to the Dodgers this year because he was with somebody else, I believe, before. What else? Is there, like, those big distinctions? They all have bad lines. You know, the Dodgers are minus 240. San Diego's a minus 220. Here we don't totally agree projected score-wise. We think, I don't know. I don't want to talk too much because, honestly, we're really just throwing darts right now. There's not enough in here. But I would like to say I made a ton of progress today. We're talking hours of work and on no sleep. Like, I drove from the West Coast and made it to the East Coast finally. So I'm exhausted. I'm going to take a nap. But for those of you that are interested in subscribing, there's a subscription for a month or for a week. It's like $25 or $100 depending on how long you want to use this. You'll get the daily picks here, and then you'll get also the daily sheet with the bet score factors and stuff. There's all kinds of stuff going on. I got to run, guys. Good luck. May all your picks be winning.